Last week, I picked up the Switch 2, and after some Nintendo Pro Controller sticker shock, I found myself on Amazon looking for third-party alternatives, where I found the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller, and to my delight, the discounted original Ultimate Bluetooth controller. But from a quick spec hunt, I couldn't make up my mind. So, thanks to this video's sponsor, the Vitamin Flash Speed 1500 Power Station, I decided to pick up both and compare them so that you only have to buy one. Let's get into it. The first thing you should know is that 8BitDo has a ton of variation of their Ultimate controllers, wired, wireless, and Bluetooth, each of which has some unique compatibility and quirks, but very similar naming, so be careful you're reading about the correct one when you're doing research online. For the purpose of this video, I'll refer to the 8BitDo Ultimate Bluetooth controller as the Ultimate and the Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller as the Ultimate 2. Both are primarily compatible with Nintendo Switch and Windows, but from my testing they do work with Steam Deck as well. They're also available in both black or white, starting at $70 USD, though the original Ultimate controller has been discounted to $50 and can be found in a few special edition colors for a little bit more. At their core, the Ultimate and Ultimate 2 are both Xbox-shaped controllers with a Nintendo Switch XYAB button layout. Both weigh about 245 grams, which is pretty light and comfortable in the hand, but they also feel really well constructed, and these black versions that I have a reasonably matted surface finish that does a good job of hiding finger oils. On the underside, both have textured grips, though the original Ultimate controller's texture is a bit rougher. We also find two remappable paddle buttons that fall directly in line with my middle fingers when gripping the controllers naturally. Both controllers support 3 connection modes: wired via a USB-C port on the controller backside, 2.4 GHz wireless via USB radio frequency receivers, and Bluetooth, though your polling rate and compatibility depends on which connection mode you're using. You'll also get the same pairing buttons, charge indicator, and 4-dot status lights on both controllers, as well as a profile button on the front and center of the controller, which toggles through the 3 mappable configurations supported by each, as well as a default no-light profile. It's worth noting that these profiles are configured using 8BitDo's Ultimate Software or Ultimate Software v2, depending on which controller you're using, but I'll discuss that more in just a little bit. Both controllers also have an 8BitDo logoed home button encircled by a white LED ring that's used to communicate pairing status. There's also plus, minus, and star buttons on the front face, though their positioning varies a little bit depending on the controller, and the Ultimate 2 also has an extra square button that defaults to capture controls when connected to Nintendo Switch, freeing up the star button for turbo control by default. Speaking of which, both the Ultimate and Ultimate 2 support turbo mode, which automatically rapidly pulses the button of your choice when you hold it down. This can be handy for games that require you to spam a specific key over and over again, or for first-person shooters where you want to simulate rapid fire. To enable turbo mode, you simply hold down on the button that you want to set, then tap the star button. You can tell it's working because the home button light will flash quickly when you're holding it down. To disable it, simply hold down on the button and tap star again. As I mentioned, by default the star button is set to the capture button on Switch on the original Ultimate controller, so you'll have to first remap it to the turbo function using the Ultimate software. Moving around to the back of the controller, both have analog linear triggers whose activation range can be set within the associated software, though the ones on the Ultimate 2 have been upgraded to Hall effect sensors, which is nice as the original triggers were a common failure point on the original Ultimate controller. Fortunately though, both controllers come with 8BitDo docks, which not only conveniently cradle and charge the controller when it's not in use, but also act as storage for the 8BitDo radio frequency receivers. Note here that the Ultimate 2 receiver has been updated to USB-C, which is nice to see. Either way, the dock storage compartment connects the receiver to whichever device its USB-A cable is connected to. This is easily my favorite feature of these controllers because it allows me to leave my dock connected to my PC across the room, use the controller in Bluetooth mode with the switch, then toggle the connection mode if I want to use it with Windows. And at the end, I can just set the controllers back in their dock, where they automatically disconnect and start charging. Oh, and there's this cool white LED strip that illuminates the bottom of the dock. It's a pretty slick setup. So, with all this, I understand why the Ultimate Bluetooth controller has been such a popular choice, but the Ultimate 2 also has some noteworthy changes. Before we get into that, this video was made possible by Vitamin, whose FlashSpeed 1500 portable power station has become my go-to for power storage. 3 things I like about the FlashSpeed 1500 are: 1. The capacity and sheer number of ways that I can connect things. With a 1548 watt-hour capacity and roughly 80% efficiency, I always have plenty of power regardless of whether I'm charging phones or boiling water while camping, or even using power tools in the backyard where I don't have many outlets. Add in the company's foldable solar panels or an extended battery pack, and I'm set for even longer. Number 2, pass-through mode and UPS functionality. Because the FlashSpeed 1500 supports pass-through while charging and sub 20 millisecond switchover, I can also use it as a UPS for my appliances in case there's a loss of power. And 3, the relative affordability. Like all power station companies, Vitamin regularly offers sales on the FlashSpeed 1500, and with its current discounts, I've calculated you get about 2.7 watt-hours per dollar, which is way better than the other options that I had been looking at. If you're interested in picking up a portable power station, I would encourage you to check out the FlashSpeed 1500 and the rest of Vitamin's lineup on Amazon by following the links that I'll leave in the video description. Now, back to it. There are 4 main changes worth noting with the Ultimate 2 controller. First, the joysticks. Not only does the Ultimate 2 get TMR or tunnel magnetoresistance mechanisms, which are more power efficient and have about 10 times the resolution of the Hall effect joysticks on the original Ultimate controller, they also have reflective metallic stems, which matter because the Ultimate 2 joysticks are lit by RGB LEDs. At first, I didn't think this would be a big deal, but after a week of use, I have to say, I really like this lighting. By default, there are 3 light modes: light tracing, which responds to the joystick and other buttons on the controller; fire ring, which simply revolves around the joystick; and a static color mode. Each of which comes with 5 default color options that you can jump between by holding the star button and pressing left or right on the D-pad. Similarly, you can use the up and down D-pad buttons to adjust either the speed of the fire ring or the brightness of the other 2 modes. And of course, if you find all of this distracting, you can also just turn it off by toggling through the different modes. The one thing I'll note here, which I found to be a bit disappointing, is that the color and brightness and speed controls are only available when in the default controller profile. You can still set the RGB for the custom profiles, actually with finer control, but you have to use the Ultimate Software V2 to make those changes, which isn't as convenient if all you want to do is adjust the speed or change the brightness. The second major change with the Ultimate 2 controller is related to the shoulder buttons and triggers. Not only are the R1 and L1 bumpers nearly twice as long as the original Ultimate controller, they also include 2 new customizable R4 and L4 buttons, which sit below and a little more central on the controller. These also both now use mechanical micro switches similar to a computer mouse, which have a very sharp and satisfying tactile feel. Additionally, beyond being upgraded to Hall effect triggers, the Ultimate 2 now includes toggle switches, which allow you to convert the back triggers from analog linear action, which is handy for something like variable throttle or brake control, to digital mechanical button action, whose low travel and tactile feedback is handy for rapid, repeated presses, like you would see in a first-person shooter. Following the same theme, the third big change is the upgrade to tactile mechanical microswitches from mushy membrane ones for most of the other face buttons, with the exception of X, Y, A, B. Most notably, the D-pad. Personally, I like how fast and clicky the new D-pad feels, However, I will note that my wife, who actually games more than I do, much prefers the classic firm membrane buttons of the original Ultimate controller. But here's a quick sound sample so that you can hear the difference for yourself. And finally, before we talk about the software differences, the last main change is actually that the battery remains 1000 milliamp hours for both these controllers, which, likely due to the joystick RGB, cuts the roughly 20-hour battery life of the original Ultimate controller down to about 12 hours for the Ultimate 2. For me, I don't think this will make a noticeable difference because I tend to dock and charge my controllers between gaming sessions, but this could be very important depending on how you plan to use your controller. As I mentioned, both the Ultimate and Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controllers both support proprietary 8BitDo software, which allows you to customize the controller's button mapping across different profiles. The Ultimate controller uses the Ultimate software, which is available for Windows, Android, and iOS, as well as a separate upgrade tool that's available for Windows and Mac, while the Ultimate 2 controller uses the Ultimate Software v2, which is only available for Windows and Mac, and includes a firmware upgrade tool built in. Though for the life of me, I couldn't get the Mac version to recognize my controller when it was connected. Either way, when you enter the software, you have the ability to configure 3 profiles independently for the Switch and for Windows, essentially giving you 6 profiles that you can configure for different game types. I won't spend too much time on this, but as an example, I've set up a Mario Kart World profile that maps the gas button, A, to the right back paddle, and the item fire button, L, to the left back paddle, so that they're a little bit easier to reach. I then set the L1 bumper to turbo mode so that I can rapid fire the gold speed boost mushroom when I get it. If you're interested in seeing more layout ideas, let me know in the comments. Beyond button mapping, you also have the ability to tune the joystick settings, like sensitivity, inversion, and D-pad swapping. Tune and swap the triggers, dial back the vibration, which by the way is pretty similar for both controllers, not super strong, but good, and set custom macros to quickly execute button combinations. Here, I'll note that this is done by manually selecting buttons from a list for the Ultimate controller, while the Ultimate 2 records the macro as you punch the keys on your controller, after which you can manually change the delay and hold times. Ultimately, both methods get the job done. And of course, the Ultimate Software v2 includes RGB control for the joysticks, so that you can fine-tune your color setup. Personally, I like that the firmware upgrade tool is integrated into the Ultimate Software v2. However, I did kind of appreciate the convenience of remapping buttons on my iPhone, which was only supported with the original Ultimate software. One really nice feature of the Ultimate 2 controller worth noting here, though, is that you don't actually have to use the software for basic button mapping. You can do this by simply holding down on the target button, for example the left back paddle, then the button you want to map to it, like B, and press the star button. I found this really handy when I wanted to quickly try out a few different mappings within a game because I didn't have to boot up the software and disconnect my controller. All things considered, there's a lot to like about the 8BitDo's Ultimate and Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controllers. For the purpose of my casual gaming, mostly playing Switch games like Mario Kart and Smash, as well as Steam games like Halo and Hogwarts Legacy, either would be more than sufficient for me. That said, while I do think the Ultimate 2's decreased battery life will be important for some users, and I really would like to access the Ultimate Software V2 on mobile, knowing what I know now about the upgrades, I would probably opt for the Ultimate 2 Bluetooth controller over the original. The combination of tactile buttons, the ability to toggle the triggers between analog and digital response, and the RGB joystick lighting are enough for me to justify the price bump. But what do you think? Is either of these controllers right for you, or is there another that you find more compelling? Let me know why using the comments below. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.